The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
With every day that passes, we know a little bit more about the Republican plan to essentially destroy Obamacare. We've talked about the opposition to anything President Obama would propose that was taking place in a back room of a D.C. restaurant with Frank Luntz and Newt Gingrich and a bunch of Republicans. We know all about the denial of service attacks on the Obamacare website. And now CNN has obtained the House Republican strategy memo called "Because of Obamacare, I Lost My Insurance." It has talking points, it has videos, digital flyers, meme type stuff, op-eds, fact sheets, all meant to continue battling against Obamacare, which of course was passed by the process that is established as the legislative process of this country, appealed all the way up to the Supreme Court, etc. And it talks about, it has a few sections, and the sections are sabotaging the website. We know all about that. So the side you might know about is that of the denial of service attacks, which were not orchestrated, as far as we know, by actual Republican elected officials, but just by private right-wingers, so to speak. But the other element of sabotaging the website is to attempt not to fund it, not to fund the development, not to fund the state exchanges at the gubernatorial level, to try to just keep as much money out of the system as possible. Another section is sabotaging the Medicaid expansion, which also goes to the state level, as we've talked about. Some Republican governors have bought into that. Some have resisted it and gone forward the logical way. And sabotaging the Affordable Care Act marketplace enrollment. And this has been a multi-pronged approach, Lewis, in part trying to keep the systems not functioning, but also this campaign of late, which is focused on young people and telling them just don't sign up. So a multi-pronged approach simply meant not to do anything constructive, but just to get in the way.
Well, do we believe that a lot of these Republicans believe that Obamacare is going to destroy the country, or is this just about destroying Obama?
This always comes down to that, because I truly believe that if Republicans really thought Obamacare would not work, they would allow it to fail. We know that they've allowed or helped the economy to fail simply to hurt Democrats. It would be absolutely, there's no reason to think it would be different when it comes to allowing a health insurance program to fail simply to hurt Democrats. I agree. If they truly believed it was not going to work, they would have allowed it to happen and then reap the benefits in 2014 and 2016. We'll see if that happens. I talked to you earlier this week about the subsequent arrest of George Zimmerman, who was acquitted in for the murder of Trayvon Martin a couple of months ago. He was arrested again, this time for threatening his current and I guess like an old girlfriend, who now is his girlfriend again by some reports I've read. It's not totally clear. And he was in court. He is monitored with another GPS tracking device, $9,000 bail. The conservative website WorldNet Daily is saying that this entire subsequent arrest of George Zimmerman is a liberal media plot. Ross Story writes it up really concisely, and they talk about how a writer for the website WorldNet Daily, which is a birther hub, they've gone full birther, Lewis, for lack of a better term. They've put together a column defending George Zimmerman, saying that he is basically just the victim of a plot. Brian Tashman at Right Wing Watch wrote, "In another WorldNet Daily story defending Zimmerman in the face of new accusations of abuse, Cashel claims that Zimmerman's estranged wife and his, quote, latest victim, as if she's not really a victim, concocted their claims together to garner media attention and betrayed Zimmerman by going to the police after he threatened them." It's so funny. The column admits that Zimmerman threatened them, but the betrayal was them going to the police to talk about it. What a far-out plot. I don't understand where Zimmerman gets this absurd right-wing support.
Yeah, well, this kind of fits with a lot of things we talk about. Where do these ideas come from? Why are they supporting ideas that make no sense or just seem to hurt people or hurt the country? I don't know. I'll never understand it, but it's good to know that we can say with certitude that WorldNet Daily has gone completely off the deep end.
It's interesting how the most extreme elements of the American right are proactively defending George Zimmerman. They're coming up with new ideas, new ways to defend his actions. I am feeling more and more that someday somebody's going to stand their ground against George Zimmerman, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah, these people are just nuts. It's really sad when there's a large group of Americans who idolize a guy who got away with killing a young black kid. It's pretty incredible.
And the other thing also, Lewis, is that when you think about the criticisms of let me put it a different way. When you think about those who were defending Zimmerman and criticizing others, this is the take responsibility for yourself crowd. Except when it comes to Zimmerman, they seem to be blaming everybody for anything, including made up stuff, but not George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman seems to escape that mantra of personal responsibility that seems to be such a key part of this group's political and kind of cultural view. Very big news out of the Army. The Army is going to discharge all convicted sex offenders. Kevin sent me the story. The Military Times has a write-up which says that the Secretary of the Army has issued an order to round up all of the convicted sex offenders in the service as soon as possible, is the quote, and initiate proceedings for discharging them from the Army. This is part of a broader campaign from the military to fight back against sexual assault. And now soldiers convicted of a sex offense, which the military includes as rape and sexual assault, who are deployed, are going to have to come home and they will be discharged. Now, I have to tell you, Lewis, this is a good thing. Obviously, if you are in the military and you're convicted of rape or sexual assault, you should no longer be in the military. You are a danger to your fellow troops. However, the really big issue here is the one that is being fought by, for example, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Democrat from New York State, which is that we need to remove the reporting of sexual assault in the military from the chain of command. I've talked about this before, Lewis. This is the main problem with military and sex abuse, which is, even in cases of rape or sexual abuse, like with everything else that happens in the military, you have to go through the chain of command, going to your immediate superior to report it to them, and they in turn file a report with their superior. The problem here is an obvious one. Number one, superiors can be the perpetrators of rape or sexual assault. Number two, superiors can be buddy-buddy with those who are accused of the rape and sexual assault. And it is inherently a system that is open to corruption and that is open to causing fear of reporting the crime itself. So it's great that if you are convicted of rape or sexual assault, you're out of the military. But we need a system that will not dissuade individuals from reporting the rape or sexual assault. And we need a system that prevents individuals in the chain of command from just cutting off the claims altogether and preventing a full investigation. This is good, but we need that, Lewis.
Yeah. At first, I was shocked when I read this because I thought to myself, well, sex offenders were allowed to stay in there before this. How does that make any sense?
Right.
Okay, so that's obviously ridiculous. But yeah, obviously the chain of command is a big problem. And you could probably take the number of sex offenders that will be discharged from this and quadruple it, maybe even more. And that's the number of people who have gotten away with this, who are still in the military. And that is the issue.
Another couple has been found guilty of murder for participating in this Christian to train up a child parenting. Alicia Bayer writes about this in The Examiner, and she says two parents in Washington state have been found guilty of murder after allegedly following the abusive parenting techniques advocated in the parenting book To Train Up a Child by Michael and Debbie Pearl. Larry and Carrie Williams received the maximum prison sentences allowable under the law after being found guilty of beating and starving their adopted daughter Hannah to death. The methods they used to, quote, discipline their daughter were advocated in the controversial Christian book. According to the New York Times, late one night this May, the adopted girl was found face down, naked, and emaciated in the backyard. Her death was caused by hypothermia and malnutrition, both common among these Christian punishment advocates. According to the sheriff's report, the parents had deprived her of food for days at a time, made her sleep in a cold barn or a closet, and shower outside with a hose. They often whipped her, leaving marks on her legs. The mother had praised the Pearls' book and given a copy to a friend, according to the sheriff's report. So some of the discipline techniques that are advocated in the Pearls book, again, it's called To Train Up a Child, include using plastic tubing to beat children since it's too light to cause damage to the muscle or the bone, wearing the plastic tubing around your neck all the time so that the child is constantly reminded by that plastic tubing that they must obey, Lewis, swatting babies as young as 6 months old with instruments such as a 12-inch willowy branch, blanket training babies by hitting them with an instrument if they try to crawl off a blanket on the floor, and beating older children with rulers, paddles, and larger tree branches. Also, you can hose off children who have potty training incidents. Just take out a hose and start hosing them off. This is unbelievable, Lewis. This is the sickest form of parenting. That is, I understand it's called Christian parenting or whatever. The average Christian would never subscribe to this. This is an extremist element that has perverted Christianity, which has its own problems. In its true form, Christianity has its fair share of problems. This is a perversion of Christianity, and the couple is the third set of parents to be found guilty of killing their children who were followers of the Pearls. Don't the Pearls need to be charged as accessories to murder?
Yeah, I think so. Of course, at the very least, this book should not be allowed on any bookshelf in the country.
Well, but hold on. See, that's controversial, though, because then you're getting into banned book lists, and that really is a problem. I think the book should be allowed as a piece of prose, but if that book can be tied to so many children's deaths, then maybe the writers of the book, the authors, need to face the consequences.
Well, come on, David. I mean, this is part of the reason why the Anarchist Cookbook is not allowed in many places. It's the exact same thing. It's dangerous. And I mean, I guess that's a separate argument. And even another separate argument is how often that these children who end up in these situations are adopted.
Of course.
That I find interesting as well.
No question about it. And I've been meeting some people who work in the foster care system here in New York City, and the stories they tell me about some foster parents are also incredible. So it does seem that there is something specific going on with these types of discipline and foster and adoptive parents. Horrible story. We're coming up on the Thanksgiving holiday and the end of the year, and I wanted to talk just for a minute, Lewis, about the real need we have right now to support alternatives to independent media. Maybe, by the way, through the Thanksgiving membership special we have at davidpakman.com/Thanksgiving13. I've been trying to stay away from the corporate media broadcasts that I used to watch a lot of and just kind of get summaries for the show because it has become so unwatchable. The other day I put on a couple of the three-letter news networks. I don't need to say who, but you can guess. And it's gotten so much worse than what I even remembered from regular consumption over the last 6 or 8 months. And it really struck me that the alternative media outlets like the David Pakman Show and so many others are so desperately needed right now. And I would ask our viewers and our audience, our listeners, where would you be getting your political opinion right now if this show, if the David Pakman Show didn't exist, or if it had never existed? Has there been value that you've gotten about the problems with corporate media by watching or listening to this show? The right-wing media empire, Lewis, continues to grow, and progressive networks and progressive shows continue to fall away. Fortunately, we're still here, in great part because of membership support. But I was thinking back to when we started back in Northampton, Massachusetts, thinking about all the other shows, podcasts, radio shows that started along with us. 95% of those shows no longer exist, and the ones that do are struggling significantly because they don't have the buy-in that we have from our audience. So please think about what it would be like if none of these programs existed. And I look back and think about when we first started, and we could have been one of those that fell by the wayside. We didn't because of your support. Think about what it would be like if this program was gone. And then think about becoming a supporter of this program. davidpakman.com/Thanksgiving13. The special is awesome. 1-year membership, a David Pakman Show hoodie, which is not only made from recycled materials, but helps to promote the show as you walk around the street wearing the hoodie. Lewis is wearing one of the hoodies today. And your choice of a David Pakman Show bumper sticker or having us record your outgoing voicemail message. I've started to get a bunch of scripts, Lewis, from people who signed up to have us record their messages. Some of these are going to be pretty funny. Check it out, davidpakman.com/Thanksgiving13. It's important. We'll be back after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Our membership program is made possible in part by liberalbias.com. Liberalbias.com refuses to have their theories and graphs dictated by fact checkers. Find out how to free yourself from the oppression of liberal facts at liberalbias.com. Today's new member of the day is Bob Burke. Bob, thanks for being a David Pakman Show member. Join Bob at davidpakman.com/membership. Amazon items. You can support the show by doing all of your Amazon shopping through the Amazon banner on our website, davidpakman.com. Always like to see what people are ordering. Lewis, 12 of our viewers have purchased Breaking Bad, the final season, streaming video from Amazon.com. I purchased it recently because it's still not on Netflix. I needed to know how the series ended. It's one of my favorite TV shows I've ever seen. Lewis, I believe you still have not seen the end.
I haven't. No, I've been holding out for Netflix, but I don't know. I may have to jump on the bandwagon here.
It's just the last season is amazing. Everything, the fourth season to me is probably the craziest, so to speak, but the fifth season just wraps everything up so amazingly. It's very much worth seeing. Also, an order for Nippy's Skin. These are reusable silicone nipple cover pasties. That's interesting. I actually know about this. My girlfriend is in a graduate academic program that is essentially all women. So I've been present when there are conversations about you wear a certain type of shirt and you simply have no choice but to not wear a brassiere, and you have to have the nipple pasties, Lewis. This is just something that happens in modern society, and I'm familiar with it. I understand the need for this product.
Fascinating, David. Interesting conversations you're having.
Yeah, absolutely. And then lastly, this caught my eye, a book about vegetarian Christian saints. I guess there are enough Christian saints who advocated a lifestyle of vegetarianism that you could write a whole book about it. Somebody bought that.
I wonder if any of them wore nipple covers.
Yeah. Very good question, Lewis. Thank you. So remember, you support us by doing your shopping on Amazon through the banner at davidpakman.com. Bookmark it. Remember it now that the holiday shopping season is starting up. We've been talking for a while, Lewis, about McDonald's and other large corporations that pretend to be self-sufficient drivers of the economy when actually being huge recipients of federal aid. And Barry Ritholtz on Bloomberg.com wrote an awesome article called How McDonald's and Walmart Became Welfare Queens. And it quantifies so much of what we've been talking about. It talks about how McDonald's and American fast food workers receive more than $7 billion in public assistance. Walmart alone is the nation's largest private sector employer and the biggest consumer of taxpayer-supported aid, which is just unbelievable. On average, each Walmart associate is paid so little that they receive $1,000 in public assistance. The ruse is up, Lewis. We know that it is a joke that these big corporations are simply adding to the economy. They are taking away huge amounts in federal aid because of the horrible wages and situations that they put their employees in.
Yeah, and you know what? Their prices aren't even that good, to be perfectly honest, David. There's no way it would even out. clearly it's totally destructive.
Some solutions: increase the minimum wage. That's the most likely to happen. The next proposal that Barry writes about is charge back the amount of public assistance to the company just as a straight up fine. You got to pay back the amount of public assistance we give your employees. And the most radical one that will never pass is guarantee everybody in America a minimum salary. That's being discussed in Switzerland. Probably not going to happen here. I've talked quite a bit about texting and driving and drunk driving. We've talked about it extensively, Lewis. There's a girl who tweeted, "Too drunk to care," before causing a horrific accident that killed 2 people. The Miami New Times reports that Saturday night, hours before authorities say 20-year-old Kayla Mendoza pulled her Hyundai Sonata onto the Sawgrass Expressway going the wrong way, crashing into a Toyota Camry, killing the 2 passengers. She tweeted, "Too drunk to care," as her Twitter feed shows. She calls herself a pothead princess on Twitter. She posted things like "too drunk to care," "too high to care," "my car permanently smells like weed," "I have a test at 8 a.m. Why am I drunk now?" Florida Highway Patrol say she was going the wrong way at 1:45 in the morning. One of the passengers of the vehicle she struck was pronounced dead at the scene. The other passenger was transported to a hospital where she later died. According to court records, she has not yet been charged with any crime. We're going to follow it. Lewis, I think it's abundantly clear she needs to be charged with a crime. Texting and drinking and driving are all just such huge problems, and this is an incident of drinking and driving. Texting causes similar levels of impairment, as does being slightly drunk. Of course, if you're incredibly drunk, that would be a different level. I've never been more sure, Lewis, that we need to start moving in the direction of a system that limits the risk of these accidents. Self-driving cars have to be a part of it, I think.
Yeah, that's certainly a solution. But before everyone's got one of those and they're all on the roads, it's going to be quite a while. So we really need to ramp up the legislation and penalties for things like this.
The amount of times I drive by someone who is looking down and all over the road and clearly just texting, it's sickening. The number of times this happens every time I drive my car, and it's just absolutely horrifying. Let's take a break. We'll talk to Bill Scher next. Is the claim from the right that 50 million to 100 million people are going to lose their insurance plans when Obamacare is fully implemented? Is that true or not? Bill Scher is here to talk to us about it.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
I'm joined by Bill Scher. He is a senior writer at Campaign for America's Future, also a columnist at The Week. Bill, these new talking points on Obamacare, it seems every week or every 10 days there's a new set of talking points that start circulating. Now there's the potential for 50 million to 100 million canceled insurance policies over the next year by October of 2014. What's the source of this new talking point, and is there any truth to it?
Well, this is coming from the American Enterprise Institute, which is a conservative think tank. I mean, just on its face, it's ludicrous. We're a country of 300 million people, most of whom are not everyone who is an adult, so you're basically suggesting that every single insurance plan is going to get canceled. That's not mathematically possible. What can happen over time is that insurers and employers are going to make adjustments to their plans. They were doing that before Obamacare. We'll do it after Obamacare. It's called a free market. I had my premium jacked up on me before Obamacare got passed, as a lot of other Americans did. So you can't make every single change to an insurance plan evidence that Obamacare is awful.
Right. Well, this seems to connect back to the same thing we had. It was a couple of weeks ago when there were the stories of people having their policies canceled now. And when we dug into it, we started to find that, well, actually, hold on a second. People who had policies that were pre-existing, so to speak, before Obamacare, those were grandfathered in. It was the private insurers that continued offering plans that they knew, or at least should have known, were not going to work under Obamacare. They didn't tell a lot of their policyholders that, and to blame that on President Obama seemed like quite a stretch.
Well, right. I mean, what's happened so far has affected the individual market. So people who don't get insurance through their employer, they're buying it themselves. They're either a small business owner or an individual entrepreneur or otherwise just buying it themselves.
Sure.
That's a very small portion of the country. It's a market that has tons of turnover. People don't usually buy insurance in that market for more than a year or two at a time anyway. So they're constantly changing their plans. And so all that's happened so far is since Obamacare puts a floor on the minimum amount of benefits that a plan has to offer, they had a grandfather clause for some of these substandard plans, but that market just changes a lot. So the grandfather clause ends up getting moot after a period of time. That was always in the law. It was always openly talked about. It should not be a surprise to anybody. If you were in that market, you should have been aware of that. That's the fact. What some folks are looking at now, let's be honest about the numbers here. The Congressional Budget Office has projected that by 2016, there would be 6 million fewer people who receive employer-based health insurance compared to this year. So that's different than the individual market. That's the market that most of us are in who have salary jobs.
Sure.
That doesn't mean 6 million people no longer have insurance. That means 6 million people work at offices where the employer said, it's going to be in my best interest to shift my employees onto the exchanges and not give them the insurance directly through me. They'll still get insurance.
When we look at each of these kind of like trendy talking points individually, we find out pretty quickly that they're either partially, mostly, or completely untrue. However, we still see in the numbers that this is having an effect. There is some stuff is sticking to the wall, for lack of a better term, when it comes to some of this. And I'm seeing polls that show the popularity of Obamacare as a thing separate from these kind of underlying questions about health insurance, popularity decreasing, President Obama's approval decreasing. And I'm curious whether this is just being mishandled by the White House, or whether the right is doing a particularly good job at getting stuff to stick.
No, I don't. I think this is more just the reality of a ramp up of a new program. I don't think the right's messaging is anything magical to it. Their messaging has been pretty awful for several years up until this point, or else they would have won the 2012 election or won the shutdown, for example. But I think it is the case that you're in this initial part of the enrollment period. The website is still a hinky, though it gets better every day. If, for example, you get a notice from your insurer that your current plan is ending and you don't have an easy way to find out what your alternatives are, you're going to be very frustrated and uncertain. And even though this is actually a very small percentage of the country, it only takes a handful to get media coverage. And so that can create a broad level of uncertainty of what comes next. So that's going to drive poll numbers down. That would be a bigger concern if Obama was running for re-election next week and he would lose and the next guy would then upend the entire program. But that's not what's happening. It doesn't even matter if Democrats lose the Senate in 2014. The Congress isn't running the program, the executive branch is. Obama has essentially 3.5 more years to continue with the implementation. All this stuff is noise. They want to damp the noise down because they want people to sign up. They don't want people to be dissuaded from signing up. But there's plenty of time to work through these flares, the misinformation, the hysterical manufactured anxiety coming from the media, coming from the right.
And when we think about all of those, Bill, when we think about each one of those, there's never like a control group, right? Where we say, okay, people like the website at a 2 out of 10. People like the average private insurance website at a 2 out of 10 or whatever the number may be. In other words, people have long been dissatisfied with their private insurers. There doesn't seem to be any comparison being made that these things are never incredibly smooth as it is, not only comparing to other programs as you did in your piece a couple of weeks ago in the week, whether it be Social Security or whatever else, but even compared to what people had. Who was so thrilled with what they had?
Well, some people were, but if often you might think you have better insurance than you do. You don't find out that's bad until you're in trouble. That's why it's always very hard for those on the hard left to get single payer pass, because if everybody openly hated what they had, it would be very easy to say, I want to go into this very reliable government plan. But most folks, as of today, like what they have, rightly or wrongly. So it's easy to inject a degree of uncertainty that, what you like is going to be stripped away from you.
All right, Bill Scher, senior writer, Campaign for America's Future, also a columnist at The Week. Bill, thanks again for being on.
Always a pleasure.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
A U.S. veteran of the Korean War is being held by North Korea right now. The Guardian is reporting that an 85-year-old U.S. veteran of the Korean War has been detained in North Korea since last month, according to his family. Merrill Newman's son, Jeffrey, told the San Jose Mercury News that his father had been taken off of a plane that was set to leave North Korea on October 26th with no explanation at all. His travel buddy was allowed to return and said that this has to be a terrible misunderstanding. He hopes North Korea will see this as a humanitarian matter and allow him to go. There aren't really diplomatic relations between the U.S. and North Korea, so other countries are involved here trying to negotiate some kind of a release. A Swedish ambassador was able to bring over Merrill Newman's heart medication. Just a horrible situation. And some people emailed me, 2 people sent me stuff about the story saying, why does an 85-year-old with a heart condition go to North Korea? I mean, okay, I understand that idea, which is, does it really make sense knowing that you were a veteran of the Korean War and that you're 85? Does it really make sense to go there? At the same time, maybe he thought, I'm 85. When will I have another chance to see North Korea, which I really want to do? Hopefully they can negotiate his release soon, Lewis, and this doesn't turn into a much worse situation. What do you think this guy is doing there?
I don't know.
Does he have books? Is he just sitting in a cell? Like what? It's just horrible.
I can't even imagine, but the U.S. really needs to flex its muscles and get this guy back. Enough of this diplomatic crap.
Yeah, but Lewis, I think that's almost what North Korea wants, flexing muscles, and then they kill the guy, or who knows? I mean, I think that's what they're trying to cause here.
Well, David, we're the ones that have the upper hand.
Okay, well, let's hope Lewis is right and that this leads to a satisfactory conclusion. Yesterday was producer Louis Motamedi's 29th birthday. We've put together some of the best recent moments involving producer Lewis. We can't possibly have all of them, Lewis, because there have been so many, but this is a little bit of a sampling, isn't it?
It is. I did not sign off on this video. I did not endorse this video. I did not. I really had nothing to do with this video. David took it upon himself to humiliate me. So
I don't think that there's nothing humiliating in the video at all. Let's take a look at it. You tell me, Lewis, which clips are humiliating. Check it out.
Lewis, it's voting day. Big day today. Big day for Lewis. Come on, Lewis. Lewis, you know what day it is. You're doing it, right?
I'm ready.
What do you got there, tea?
Yeah, I got like 2 hours of sleep. I'm not doing good.
All right. It's a great start to election day.
Give us the short version of what this is, how you came up with it. What are we looking at here?
it's corpse paint. That's what it is.
corpse paint. Okay, but Lewis, explain a little more, especially for people who are listening on the radio or podcast.
You said you wanted me to give you the shortest possible version, so that was it. Okay. And I've been told I'm in desperate need of a makeover.
All right, here we go.
Okay, so, here's my exit. The kayak strapped to the roof are making an insane amount of noise, kind of freaking me out. I don't know if you can hear it. A lot of drag, I think, too, on the vehicle because it's guzzling gas way more than usual.
Hey, Lewis, how's that stuff fitting? Is it working out all right? Okay, you're obviously not a 34. Those are a bit big.
So these jeans, are really, really tight and might actually, inhibit my ability to have children.
Let's open up, Lewis, the bag of mixed bugs, salted mixed bugs,
Here it is.
Let's give them a try. Let's see. Now, Lewis, remember, you've got to hold everything up near your mic.
These are boiled and dehydrated. Oh man, and salted, slightly salted, I believe. Okay, there's some pretty gnarly looking things in here.
Do they have paprika?
I don't know what this is. It looks like the head of something. I'm just going to go for it.
Okay, here we go. Lewis is trying a bug. Is it salty? How salty is it?
It tastes like, okay, not very good. Taking the kayaks out. So this is how we cook. This is the only belt I wear, actually. I've actually been wearing this since middle school.
So Lewis is trying bugs, ladies and
Here there
gentlemen.
seems to be some type of winged critter.
My understanding is you don't want to eat the wings.
There's some big type of worm right here. I guess I can give this one a shot, huh?
You're the boss, Lewis. You're in charge here. Lewis tasting, Lewis trying. What do you think?
That one was okay.
Okay.
I lost my one worm. First cast. It's buggy as hell. This is our new setup. We put up the tarp because it's going to rain. And we also have a bathroom now. There's our poop bucket.
As you can see there, on the left is Lewis's dad, and on the right is Eugene Levy. We didn't have the best pictures. This isn't the picture of your dad where he looks most like Eugene Levy.
Right.
Here he is. Can you do it? There we go.
Producer Lewis giving Colorado to Mitt Romney. Interesting. Why did you decide to do that, Lewis?
Why? Good question. Because I did this in a hurry. That's why.
I see. Well, this is a great explanation.
But we have to factor in voter fraud as well.
Greetings, fans. I know what you're thinking. I'm not tough enough. We didn't make it. Well, according to the locals, it's been unseasonably cold here.
Yeah, I would like the audience to review some of the bonus shows. I remember a discussion where I indicated that the idea...
Now, what I have said is that if I accidentally had a kid,
Yeah.
I'd probably love the kid and then things would be great.
You would probably love the kid. You might not. You probably would, though.
I'm sure I would.
Oh, you're sure? Okay.
Yeah.
That's very different.
Okay?
And wrapping up there with the classic, if I accidentally had a kid, I'd probably love the kid, maybe the most famous line ever uttered by producer Louis Motamedi on this show. I don't think that it's embarrassing at all. I think it's some of the funniest and coolest moments from the show.
Okay, I guess we can call it endearing then, maybe.
No, but seriously, like, which clip was embarrassing?
No. I guess except for that last one, nothing was really embarrassing. No,
I actually decided to have the full context after that, because after you said I'd probably love the kid, you said, no, I'm sure I would. So, like, even though the famous part is I'd probably love the kid, if people go back to the full video of that bonus show, you did say, no, I'd love the kid. I'd love the kid.
Right, of course. It's just a classic instance of Republican-style cherry picking.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to your voicemails. 219-2-DAVID-P is the voicemail number. Call it any time of day. Here's a voicemail asking about Hatriot Mail. Listen to this.
Hey, David and Louis. This is Sam. Big fan of the show. I remember you guys do great work, but I just wanted to say I watched your show yesterday, and one comment and one question.
All right.
Comment is, David, I think your microphone sounds fine.
Thank you.
But then again, I'm not an expert on audio, so I could just be wrong. And two, the question is, what is the name of the voiceover artist that reads your Hatriot Mail? And I ask that because I think not only am I interested, but I think maybe other viewers and listeners of the show would be interested to know that as well. All right, well, you guys rock. So keep rocking.
Yeah, you're correct that there are a lot of people who are interested in knowing who does the Hatriot Mail voiceovers, and I can't really say much about why, but I actually can't tell you. So I'm not going to say anything further, Louis. Let's go on to the next voicemail. How's that for being cryptic? Here's one more voicemail about the TV show I mentioned the other day, Preachers of L.A. Check it out.
Hi, David. This is Natalie from Alabama Stan again, where all the opinions are strong and everything else is well below average. But I heard you the other day talk about the program about the Preachers of L.A.
Yeah.
And there's also a program on one of the National Geographic channels called Snake Salvation, and it discusses snake handling churches. And that is not very high production value, but it really gets into the nitty-gritty of the Appalachians, the mountains, and this practice of snake handling. So I'll just suggest it if you might watch a few and see what you think about it.
Yeah, we did a story not that long ago, Louis, about some kind of snake handling Christian who was killed or at least significantly maimed. I think the guy died from the snake he was handling in Jesus' name.
Yeah, I have seen, I think, a couple of shows about these churches. It is pretty interesting, probably more interesting than these guys running mega churches driving Bentleys.
Yeah, it's certainly much more gritty, if nothing else. Okay, davidpakman.com/Thanksgiving13. It is Thanksgiving week. Happy birthday to Louis, his big 29th. The big Louis birthday video, I feel, is going to get very strong reviews. Become a supporter of this show before the Thanksgiving special ends. davidpakman.com/Thanksgiving13. See you tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.